Welcome to the Iliad Hackathon introductory webinar series. My name is Bente Liljaby. I'm Iliad Innovation Manager and going to host this meeting today. We have some introduction to the hackathon, first and foremost, and we will start with a general introduction to the hackathon itself. We will see some digital twins of the ocean in action, and we will also, from both within Iliad and also externally, and then we will have some practical information about the next steps of the hackathon, how you can participate, etc. So with that, I will give the floor to Tom, who will start the show. Tom Red from Hub Ocean.
Yep. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen quickly just to show you what the agenda is for today. And before we start the presentations from the speakers that we have, I'm just going to give a little update or an information on the hackathon that we're organizing as part of the Iliad project this year. So probably a lot of you know Iliad. It's a project building digital twins of the ocean in Europe. And we're in the third year of the project now, and a lot of the components and a lot of the pilots are very mature. So we wanted to host a hackathon this year that would sort of demonstrate what we've done within the project and also push ourselves a bit further to do more, to integrate with other digital twins and utilize new technologies. So with that in mind, this is the first of a kickoff series of webinars that we have on the 3 themes of the hackathon. So the first theme is digital twins in action. So that's demonstrating how to build the digital twin and how to utilize the components that we've been building in the Iliad project to build those digital twins. And also thinking about how we interact with other existing digital twin projects. So we have 3 presentations today from Ute from the Iliad project, who's been building a digital twin of the ocean in Norway. Arne Jørgen, who is also a member of the Iliad project, but has been working a lot with the integration of Iliad digital twins with EU digital twins and the eDitto project and other DPO activities in the EU ecosystem. And then we have a really nice presentation from somebody called Deniz Disa, who is now working in Turkey, but has previously worked on a digital twin project building coral reef digital twins, which is really exciting and really interesting approach to take. That wasn't related to the Iliad project, so it's an opportunity to learn how other people build digital twins. So the other 2 webinars that we'll have this week, tomorrow we have one about AI and digital twins, specifically Gen AI. There's a really big potential of fusing those 2 technologies together. So we have some pitch presentations there. And then on Wednesday, we have a webinar talking about interoperability between digital twins and the kinds of tools that you can use to make sure that when you're building digital twins, they're interoperable with other digital twins. So I'm not going to talk too much more. At the end of this session, I'll give a bit more details about the hackathon, the timeline, and how you can get more involved. So I'm just going to kick it off straight away. I'll hand over to Ute, who will present digital twins within the Iliad project, or specifically one digital twin within the Iliad project. I'll stop sharing my screen and hand over to Ute.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm not a proficient Zoom user, so let me see if I can make this work. I think it's this one, or maybe this one. If you could let me know that you see my screen.
I can see your screen.
Okay, but now everything is on that screen. Yeah, uploading meetings controls. So let's try this. You hear me, you see my screen. I'm just trying to present this now. Thanks again. So my name is Ute. I work with digital twins in several contexts, but also in Iliad, and I will give you a short introduction in one of the pilots that we're working with here in Norway. Let me see if I can also move to the next slide. Yes, I can. So my main purpose while I build digital twins of the ocean is, and that links nicely to the coral reef for later, I want to build digital twins so that we can understand how we can operate sustainably in the ocean. So I work a lot with environmental risk assessment, and I'm very concerned about, can we use digital twins to understand what is the holding capacity of an ocean area I'm in, and can I use digital twins to understand, am I overshooting or do I not overshoot? This is why I have this overshoot donut. Do we use too many of the resources we have? And I also like always my digital twins to be a kind of smart, so having a digital twin that reacts to the data. I noticed that we haven't really defined what we mean by a digital twin in this context. I'm the first one out. Everybody who's working with digital twins has kind of an opinion what a digital twin is. Of course, it's a digital representation of the ocean area I'm interested in. But it can be a monitoring twin, it can be a predictive twin for climate purposes, or it can be very close together. And I always like my digital twin to react to the data. So if something exciting is happening in the ocean, that the digital twin can pick this up and give, for example, a kind of alert or change the observation pattern in this area and so forth. So what I also think is a great aspect of digital twins is that we can look at data sources that we haven't looked at before and combine that. So we create new contexts where our digital twin is operating in. And this is why we are in Iliad a lot concerned about creating very many interoperable digital twins. And that means not only the data needs to be interoperable so that we can combine them, but also the twin parts need to be interoperable so that they can be reused in other digital twins. In Iliad, we have a lot of digital twins that we want to build. So this is a map about the areas and where we are in and where we want to create digital twins. So we have these symbols. So we work with ocean energy, for example, wind energy, but also tidal energy, current energy, and so forth. We work with oil spills, we work with harbor safety, we work with jellyfish swarm predictions, we work with, what haven't I mentioned, insurance, we work with invasive species predictions and risk assessment. And the ones that I present to you in Norway now is about environmental monitoring and pollution monitoring. It's located here in the north, in Trondheim. And if you follow the Ditto program, the UN Decade program for digital twin of the ocean decade, there was this proposal that we should find an observatory where we can try to learn how to build digital twins. And this is exactly what this pilot is about. I work at Sintef Ocean, and we are located by a fjord, the Trondheim Fjord. It's a very important fjord. It's kind of deep, very fast, very close to the shore. It has a variety of ecosystems, a lot of ships traffic, and we have developed a kind of what we call Ocean Lab, where you can also do sensor testing, technology testing for environmental and sustainability purposes. We work together with the local university, the Technic and Science University here in Trondheim, and they work a lot with underwater autonomous vehicles, underwater robotics. And we have combined these two functionalities to find out how can we use this data, this observatory, combine this with modeling predictive capabilities to build a digital twin of this area in this purpose for example, governance of this fjord, for example, guided shipping in the future, and so forth. We are also testing new sensors, for example. We have a partner in Iliad who's testing new sensors, trying to identify microplastic. So this is a little video. I think I have to start this. Yes. Where you can see how it works currently. So we are currently in this minimum viable product phase where we have put together now a lot of data in the dashboard, combine this with some predictive capabilities on where things that we observe in the ocean might be transported so that we can understand how it's ended, where they end up. And we are mainly, as I said before, we do environmental monitoring. So we look at particles in the ocean and pollution or pollutant discharges into the fjord. and see how they are transported in the ocean. We also look at marine litter because on the other side of the fjord, there is a problem with a lot of marine litter. We are combining the data from the dashboard because this is currently catering to our scientists who go to this buoy on almost a daily basis. And then you can have on the map, you can now add on these different layers from the predictive models and can show where the current simulation is or what is currently simulated, where things are going. We have this little information things where you can read further details and you can try it out. So this online, you can try this out. And in the future, the next step will be to really make this interactive so that you can have your own what-if scenarios. You can drop a pin in this fjord and then a simulation will start on demand with the current observed ocean data. It's accompanied by an operational ocean model that we have available. And then we'll tell you something where things might be transported. We use two models. So what you currently see on the left side here is a model that looks at chemical pollution. It's called DREAM. What you see on the right side is a model that is called OpenDrift. It's an open source model that is free to use to everybody. And you can model marine litter. You can do backtracking, what we do with the marine litter. You can use particles, sediments, oil spills, whatever you might be interested in. And this is how we put this together. Why are we so concerned about these particle situation? I just show you some video footage, how it looks like there at the bottom of this underwater robotics lander site. So we have two sites from these, and you see there is a lot of biodiversity there. So we have fish, we have jellyfish, but there's also a lot of particles, in this case marine snow coming on there, but also living things. So on the left video footage, you see a lot of living things floating around. And these are the good things. They are supposed to be there. They can be fish eggs or copepods. These are the pictures that you see in the lower left corner. But they can also be things that do not belong there, like oil, like plastic. And we are very concerned, where will these things end up? And can we do something about this? How can we respond to these? This is why we look at these particles. So we transfer this pilot then. So I said we want to be really interoperable with what we do. So we transfer this approach to creating a pilot to other ocean areas. So we are transferring this to the Baltic Sea, where we work together with Fraunhofer in Germany. So this on the map, this is here, where we try to duplicate the same pilot. We also try to apply this, the same technology and apply this to aquaculture. So can I use the modeling of particles in the ocean or numerical modeling of things transported with ocean currents? Can I use this to make a suitable solution for aquaculture? And I guess this is what the hackathon is also about, just trying the bits and pieces and making, adapting them to new things, for example, invasive species, for example, to aquaculture and so forth. We also look into some more of fancy visualization, so not only using dashboards, but using immersive visualization for these pilots. So this is also a part of what is available from the Iliad marketplace. And I think I will stop there, and thank you so much for your attention, and good luck with the hackathon.
Thank you so much, Ute. It's very exciting. We are all very exciting in Iliad about all this. This was just a taste, and we have many more. But for now, we are moving on to you again, Tom, right?
No, I think it's over to Arne now.
Arne Jørgen. Okay,
Yep.
Arne Jørgen is our scientific coordinator in Iliad, and he will speak more about Iliad and also link Iliad to many other key activities in Europe. So Arne Jørgen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Do you see my presentation first slide now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I'll talk about architectures and interoperability aspects of digital twins of the ocean, of which there are various initiatives in a family of projects that we are focusing on with respect to interoperability. So the overall architecture is related here to this top level digital twin pipeline for interoperable digital twins that goes from digital twin data acquisition to digital twin representation to digital twin analytics models, including AI, so we'll talk about tomorrow, and also visualization and control and interaction. So on the first step of this pipeline, it's about gathering data from sensors in particular. In Iliad, we have a number of sensor packages that we are using, various physical sensors, but we're also accessing external data from satellite remote sensing, Copernicus Marine Services, eModNet, eDataNet, various data spaces are providing data sharing functionality, and in particular, we're working with the Green Deal data space initiatives, projects such as All Data for Green Deal and the GREAT projects, also data from citizen science, biodiversity data, socioecological data. There are many sources that we are drawing from to bring into the data repository of a digital twin that we call a data lake, together with D2 and Destination Earth that also have a main focus of data lakes for the data representation as we see. In order to bring data in, we need to support semantic interoperability among the heterogeneous data sources and support harmonization. So there are services for this. And there is processing support to work on the digital twin engine with the data and with the models and analytics. Coordinated with workflows. We are using workflow engine with the common workflow language, and there are also interoperability such as with the D2 that is using auto-submit. So different workflow engines that can coordinate and orchestrate the processing pipeline for the model and analysis, and also services to link to visualization and control. In Iliad, we are providing a lot of this together as various services and components in the Iliad marketplace that we are coming back to later. We're also supporting best practices, methods, and standards in this context. So what we have been working on in Iliad is to highlight these different areas along the 4 main steps that all digital twins essentially have. The data gathering, the link to the real world, so the target entity, as it's called, typically with observations and sensors, and then bringing that into a digital twin representation for the further analytics, modeling and simulation, and visualization and control, and also to provide feedback and actions that can be policies, other actions taken that eventually will impact the target, and we will monitor and see the consequences of actions that have been taken. In terms of detailing architecture more formally, we are using Archimate, which is it's a well-known architectural modeling technique, and here we are showing more in detail the components and the relationships in terms of APIs and data exchanges. This will be highlighted more in the toolbox that will be provided for the hackathon, so we can see which components are available and how they can be used. It's further also harmonized with components and tools, particular from Destination Earth and from D2. And here we see the architectural principle from Destination Earth, where we see there is a main focus of a data lake, but there is now also a link into data spaces. If you're familiar with the European common data spaces, where there is a lot of ongoing activities, and particularly the Green Deal project that provides information on environmental data that can be useful in addition to the sensors observations to bring into the data lake that is supporting the digital twin engines processing with the digital twins. And here we will see forthcoming new twins. One of the areas that already has started is digital twin of the ocean with the D2. Actually, D2 Infra and the D2 Model Lab are 2 connected project activities and procurement for a D2 Infra that is following this architecture that I have just introduced. This is a figure that is read from the right to the left, and we see data coming in from the right into the data lake, and it's being provided then for processing from the digital twin engine, and it has access to services including virtual research environments and aspects of interaction and visualization. One of the highlights here is the use of STAC, Spatial Temporal Asset Catalog, which is one of the newer catalog representations for spatial temporal data, and with so-called ARCO format, analysis-ready cloud-optimized formats such as SAR and Parquet, also geospatial extensions such as GeoSAR and GeoParquet, also NetCDF with a CF profile, are, say, best practices in terms of data representation being used here, and in terms of being interoperable. It will be support for how we can map existing data that might be in other representation forms into this context. And that's part of the strategy of Digital Twin of the Ocean interoperability. So if we link this here to the architecture I did show for Iliad, just turn the D2 architecture from right to left to be left to right, so it harmonizes with the flow here. So we have the data coming in from sensors, observations, Copernicus, marine services, eModNet, with interactions of bringing the data into the data lake, which is basically where the data is available for the digital twin operations. And that takes place to the processing with the digital twin engine. We are focusing on having an architecture that will be able to use the D2 data lake as well as the D2 engine and the D2 services, which will be provided as public services through the D2 Infra and the D2 Model Lab projects. But it will be done in such a way that it's also possible to run in other data lakes and engines that can be national services. We have a number of processing services available in Norway, for instance. There are also cloud services to the EGI and EOSC, European Open Science Cloud. So we are not restricted to run only in the physical D2 environment, but we really want to be interoperable and portable, and to ensure that the same standards and interfaces and APIs are being used. So we have an ability to expand this community or family of digital twins working together. And in particular, also enhance the input that is coming from new projects, such as the DTO Bioflow project that are also linked in here. This is bringing biodiversity data into the digital twin of the ocean, particularly using eModNet biology as one entry point, but also for image and video and eDNA have an opportunity to bring other data representations into the data lake, following also the principles of the BioDT, which is a digital twin projects on biodiversity on land in particular, but also following the same principles for the marine biodiversity data with the DTO Bioflow project. So the aim here is to ensure that the new projects, such as the DTO Bioflow, but also now the one on socio-ecological data that is coming, a new set of 4 projects starts this summer. One started already, Surimi, and we have CD2 and EcoTwin and CDOT that will bring similarly socio-ecological and economic data into the digital twin of the ocean. There might be variations also of data representations that we are looking into, because the approach here of this hackathon is to be able to support all of these activities of digital twin of the ocean projects, focusing particularly on local and sector-specific digital twins, but with the need of bringing also in additional sensor observations, biodiversity data, socio-ecological data, and to have a toolbox that provides the creation of digital twin of the ocean following the pipeline. So there will be tools here for how to do data acquisition and deal with sensor data and sensor systems, how to representation the digital twin themselves, as we just talked about with data management and the link between data spaces and data lakes, how to support the modeling, processing, analytics, and AI services. Talk about the AI services partly also tomorrow, and then visualization and interaction services, both 2D, but also, as we saw, 3D and 4D with immersive interaction. Across all this, we have also supporting services for citizen science app that can also follow this pipeline. and support for various aspects of DTO interoperability, as we'll talk about on Wednesday, including also the need to represent the semantics of information and data that is being exchanged using an ocean information model and mapping between different data representations in that context. So this will be provided as we get into the hackathon parts of this series. What we are doing now is basically providing the introductory webinar context. We'll have also the arrangement of a DTO interoperability workshop during IMDIS, International Marine Data Information Services Conference in Bergen in end of May. And on the 30th of May, there will be a DTO interoperability workshop dealing with how we support interoperability in this context. That also will be available in terms of the results for the hackathon community that will engage here. So that's basically what I was planning to introduce now as the context of the architecture and interoperability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arne Jørgen. And now we are moving on. Tom, are you there with us?
Yep. Yeah,
Yes.
sure. So the third final speaker that we'll have today is Dennis Disa. Dennis has previously worked on a project building a digital twin of a coral reef. Again, I said not part of the Iliad project, but we wanted to also show how there are lots of other people doing digital twin implementations. Denise is an oceanographic modeler, yeah, so handing over to present the work that you've done previously. Thank you, Denise.
Okay. Okay, you hear and see me well, right? See the screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm working at Middle East Technical University at the moment as a postdoctoral researcher. I'm working on 3D modeling of the Black Sea. But what I would like to talk now is about my PhD work at ETH Zurich, which was about do you see the tab in the middle?
Can see the picture of the Earth, and then there's the.
And that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't see the Zoom tab, right?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay. Okay. What I'm going to present now is about my PhD work that I did at ETH Zurich. It's about modeling a coral reef system. This system belongs to Muria Island. It's right next to Tahiti. These are the French Polynesian islands located in the Pacific. And this is how the Earth looks like when Muria is in the center. Already 10 years ago from now, a project was initiated by researchers from UC Berkeley, Santa Barbara, ETH Zurich, and Oxford University. The project is called Muria Idea, and here the idea was to create a digital replica of the island, which can be used as a virtual lab. So the idea was to create this avatar digital twin that we can perform virtual experiments to better understand the system. This was indeed more like a consortium than a project because it wasn't fully funded from beginning to the end, but it was more like researchers working on Muria were coming together and bringing their knowledge together under this Muria Idea umbrella to create an avatar of the system. So it includes people collecting data, it includes modelers, and data analysis, and so on and so forth. So there is a link which will take us to the avatar, and I already have it here. So I tested it before coming here.
So this is not a complete avatar, but I think it will give us a good sense about how the avatar looks like. So we have the 3D image of the island that we can, travel around, image of the land and the ocean. And then we see that the species in the coral reef, so these are the coral reefs surrounding the island, these light blue ones. And we can go to the web page and select the corals that we want to investigate. Here, I will select all of the shallow corals and non-coral species as well, and to see their distribution. So this is not complete, but the idea is to have the whole 3D structure implemented here on this avatar, so that the user can dive into the coral reef, swim around, maybe select a particular point, and then setting a period here, analyze the changes in the system, how temperature changed through time, how salinity change, how the currents change, or how the distribution of the corals change within the system. I know that the reefs have been scanned all around the island, and there's 3D image of the reef system, but it's not implemented on this online system yet. So what I do, or what I did for my PhD, was the simulation of the 3D flow in this coral reef system, and how it transports chemicals from one location to the other location, and how these chemicals interact with the corals, or how corals interact with these chemicals, and how they function given the surrounding physical and chemical conditions. So I do the physical modeling part. I produce a simulation, and in this talk, I will try to explain the way that goes to having the 3D model that simulates a particular system. So I did 3D modeling of the north shore of Muria. This was a selected model domain. And when you, okay, this is the top side view of the model domain. Here we see the real bathymetry that the model reads as an input. And we first needed to decide on the components that we want to have in this 3D model. Because we need to be realistic. We cannot have all the components of the system, of a natural system, because it would be too complex otherwise, and it will be computationally very expensive that we won't be able to simulate it. So we have the wind forcing and solar forcing here as chosen components. These are more or less default in 3D modeling studies. For instance, the solar radiation and heating controls how much seawater is warming and cooling, or the available light for the organisms over the reef, for instance, for photosynthesis. For this particular system, we also needed to have the surface waves, because we know that on Muria, the circulation is primarily driven by the surface waves. For instance, for Black Sea, I'm working on Black Sea at the moment, the circulation is mainly induced by the winds. But for Muria, we needed to have the surface waves. So it creates a wave-driven reef scale circulation. This is what we want to simulate, this 3D circulation. We also needed to have the air-sea gas exchange between the atmosphere and the ocean. So here I more refer to CO2 exchange, because we know that with the increased CO2 in the atmosphere, like oceans are taking some part of it, absorbing it, and they are becoming more acidic, and we are losing the coral reefs because of this ocean acidification. So if we are modeling the coral reef system, we need to definitely have some carbonate chemistry calculations in it, and we need to have the interaction like CO2 exchange between the atmosphere and the ocean to be able to better simulate the changes in pH through time. And finally, we need to have the corals, of course. So these are the main components that we decided to have in the system. The components may vary from one system to the other. then how are we going to simulate these components, the interaction of these components? So this is a complex system because it has physical components like physical drivers and circulation and its interaction with the chemicals and also with the biological processes. So one way to deal with this problem is to use different models which simulates these components individually. So this is what I did in my PhD. So this is going to be the schematic representation of the model that we have will have eventually. I'm not going to present too much technical details or scientific results, but I would like to convey the way that goes to having a 3D model. So we have a wave model that simulates the surface waves, and we also have an ocean circulation model. So these two models are coupled for our system. This means that they exchange information with each other at given time steps. So these two models together simulate the wave-driven circulation on Muria. And then we implemented an ocean biogeochemistry model. And now these three models together simulate the transport of chemicals across the model domain with the wave-driven circulation. And then finally, we implemented a coral model. So then these four models together simultaneously simulates the interaction between the corals and their surrounding 3D environment. Just to give you some idea, this, for instance, the coral model itself has its own complexity. All of the models indeed have their own complexities. I try to make it as simple as possible. It has its own internal compartments, like all these physiological processes of the corals, photosynthesis, classification, and how the chemicals are diffused from seawater into the corals, or actively hydrogen is pumped between the compartments, so on and so forth. So once these models are coded technically, like this, their hard codes are linked and they all provide information to each other, they run simultaneously, we need to set this model for the model domain. Because we could have used for another system as well. We need to tell the model that we want to run you for the North Shore of Muria. So the model reads the bathymetry of the North Shore of Muria. This is one information. But then what we do is we divide the model domain, whatever it is, into smaller units that we call grids. So these are the horizontal grids. This is not the actual grid that I use, but I made a simple grid for you to enable to visualize it. So here we see the horizontal grids, and each square here corresponds to a piece of water column. And the water column itself is divided into smaller units that we call vertical layers. There are, I think, 10 vertical layers here. So from one grid to the other, these forcings vary, like the forcing from the sun, the CO2 exchange, the winds, the strength, the direction, the angle of the waves, they all vary. And then depending on these forcings, the model computes the lateral fluxes, the transport of chemicals, vertical transport, lateral transport. And then what we have, it computes the concentrations at the bottom layer, and then what the corals see, the corals which are sitting there see at a particular grid, and then how they function given the, for instance, alkalinity or the IC pH they are exposed to, and then what chemicals they release back to the seawater. So, of course, all these grids are interconnected. So the outflux of one grid, for this particular grid, for instance, is the influx of the other grid. So these are the calculations that 3D models are doing, like to be able to provide a full map of the system. Here, as we normally use a much smaller grid size. So the grid size determines the resolution of the model. The smaller the grid size, higher the resolution, and more information we have for a particular region. So I said that we need to set this model for the model domain that we are interested in. So we provide some initial conditions for each grid. The the model starts computing from that initial condition, let's say for given temperature, salinity, pH, and then given the system dynamics, it computes the changes in temperature, changes in salinity through time and space. We also need to provide the boundary conditions. So we provide what comes in or goes out from the boundaries, because the mass needs to be conserved in the system. And then we provide the forcing, as I said, it may be the radiation, waves, winds, chemical forcing, like the change in the CO2 exchange between the atmosphere and the ocean, so on and so forth. So how do we give this information to the model? So for a system as small as Murea Island, we mainly use the data from the model domain, because the resolution of satellite data isn't enough to capture the variations in this small model domain. So these are all data sources that I could find from the North Shore of Murea. There are many different points. This is good. And I would like to mention that Murea is called a data heaven, which I don't fully agree. But this means that if we go to another system, we won't be this lucky, probably, in terms of the data that we have to start the model running. But there is one point that I would like to highlight here. Even though there are many colored dots here, not all the sources provide information for all parameters that we need for the model. For instance, we have information about pH only from the single point. So it's impossible to have a spatial understanding of the system from this pH measurements. Or we have flow measurements that belong to only 1 year in the history. There was a study conducted for 1 year, and then we have flow measurements for that year. So this temporal and spatial resolution of the data itself, the measurements, is not enough to understand the system. But what we do in 3D modeling is that we sort of interpolate, extrapolate these points as a starting point. And then we introduce the system dynamics, like the fluid mechanics, the carbonate chemistry equations, these all biological processes. And then the model computes the rest from this starting point. And then even though we started with very scarce and sparse position, in the end, we have the full map of this 3D structure. So I would like to come back to this framework. So this is how model simulated data together with the observed observations feed the overall data pool, and then it's used to create the avatar, and then it's visualized, and through some user-friendly tools, it's provided to the end user for some virtual analysis and so on. I hope, what I do is a very abstract topic, but I hope I made it clear for you to understand what it means, like to having a 3D model and how it relates to data collection and creating a avatar. I'm not the person who creates the avatar itself, this visual part, but I provide this information, like the physics behind, the chemistry behind, which will be implemented into this web page and presented to the end user.
Yeah, I think, and one point that you touched on at the very end is the availability of data. You said that Murea is a data heaven, but that you don't agree. And I think that everybody who works in the digital twin space thinks that they don't have enough data, and it's how you build digital twins with that kind of limitations of data availability is a real challenge for everybody. And that's why I think the topic that we have on Wednesday on interoperability of the data is a really important one that we'll come back to. So it was good that you mentioned that at the very end there as well. So thank you for your presentation, Denise. It was a useful also to see how people in sort of outside of a little bit outside of the European context, being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, are building digital twins. Great. So I think now, Bente, we have a bit of time for some questions and answers. So if anybody has any questions to any of the speakers, please, I think you can raise your hand in Zoom. I must say I'm not that familiar with using Zoom, or you could also put them in the chat.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, we have entered the Q&A. We will, so Tom, you will present also more technical, practical information about the hackathon itself. But before that, maybe some questions to the topic itself. Was a lot of information you all got, but it gives you an indication of digital twins of the ocean in action, which is the topic. So I don't see any hands and not in the chat.
Somebody asked, Piotr asked a question to Denise about the particular grid partitioning you used, and did that influence the execution of the models?
There are different kinds of grids that we can use. I used a rectangular grid, like it more or less looks like what I showed in the presentation. Like the sizes are more or less equal. We divided the domain into equal size grids. I had two resolution. One is 20 meter to 20 meter. One is 40 meter to 40 meter. But when it comes to larger domains, the grid size are often like kilometers, like a few hundred kilometers maybe. But in my case, it was like 20 or 40 meter to 40 meter resolution. And vertically, we call it terrain following, like this. Well, we have the water depth. We divide vertically the domain into 10 layers. And if it is like water column is not deep, then we have much narrower vertical layers. They are getting like thinner and thinner. But in the open ocean part, which is much more deeper, we have much thicker vertical layers. But we are more interested in the changes over the reef than what happens in the open ocean. This means that we had a higher resolution over the reef compared to ocean. But there's also something called telescopic grid. Then this time the grid sizes are not equal everywhere horizontally, but we have much smaller grid sizes, higher resolution over a region of interest, but much larger grid sizes. If we like when we go away from the point of interest. And what does it mean in terms of model execution? Of course, the higher the resolution, like the more time it takes, because we need for each grid, we need to do these computations, like physical, chemical, and biological computations for the model of the entire domain.
So thank you. I also have a question, Denise. So do you use, so this is the you are using this digital twin for scientific purposes, or are you using it for planning or preservation of coral reef, or yeah?
Maybe I can show you. I added it. Okay, I need to share again. I put just one of the figures from my thesis just to you know, as an example. Okay, if you remember, okay, these were the points. Like this was all the information we had before having a three-dimensional model. And then this is now we have the full. We are looking at the island from the top, and these orange lines are the borders of the reefs. And this is the total alkalinity distribution around within the model domain. And this is delta TA, how much total alkalinity changes over the reef with respect to the oceanic conditions. We see oceanic conditions are more or less homogeneous, but the heterogeneity, which brings life to the reef, is very high over the reef. So an example to your question would be, So this, okay, this rectangle shows the location of one of the long-term stations from the Muria. So data collecting people are going there, collecting the data, like physical data, mainly 4 times a year to capture the seasonality. But within the station borders, the model results suggested I can very easily detect 2 points, only like maybe like only 100 or less than 100 meters apart from each other. They should probably like reveal very different conditions over the reef, although they are both from the North Shore, although they both have the same distance from the land. So this model-derived full map of the island is indeed telling us that we need to be more specific about where we locate this, the tools, sensors that we measure the system. We know after having this 3D model, we know that the structure itself is driven by the physics. I don't want to give too much information, but what we see already here is that the water enters the reef from here, and it carries the signal, the oceanic signal, over the reef. But here we are within a recirculation pattern, and the signals that comes from the corals accumulate here. So it really matters if we locate our sensor here, or just some 100 meters or 100 meters, less than 100 meters away to the left.
Yeah, so it's basically making a visualization of the model results, or the whole complex structures of models as you described.
Yes, but
will be helpful.
We also do the quantification because we use it to understand the system. For instance, this means one of the findings of my thesis was we see that the reef sections, which are closer to the land, are exposed to much larger variations within the day. So the corals that sit here, for instance, they experience pH changes, maybe like 5 units, 6 units of pH change within a day. This means that corals that sit here have probably more used to the changes in the pH, and they might better cope with further changes in the pH due to ocean acidification compared to the corals that sit in the outer sections of the reef, because they're often exposed to oceanic conditions which are more or less the same through time, and they're not used to this stress of change. But here the corals are more used to it. So this also gives us some ideas about what the conservation strategies might be. We should definitely conserve these corals because of the historical stresses they have been exposed to and the potential adaptation mechanisms that they have developed through time.
Yeah, so my point would be that actually this tool, a digital twin, is useful also for scientific purposes. Some claim that, well, digital twins is not for science. It's not like a useful tool for science, but that's what I was driving at. You are describing that you are using a digital twin of the ocean as a tool in addition to the models, right? The models it's the whole package that provides more information for you to do better science.
Yes,
right?
that's why I wanted to highlight this recommendation to the data collectors, because where it's located will determine how we perceive the island, like how we think the island is for many years, because all the scientific knowledge will be based on the data gathered from the tools measuring the island. And then the twin itself can be very useful for the scientists collecting data, or for me trying to model the system, because as I said, we first need to decide on the components of the system and how they interact with each other, and it's very helpful to have this full picture of the system to better understand, how to handle it.
Yes,
from my perspective.
yes. Very good. That's what I was hoping to get. Thank you very much, Denise. I think we have to move on, Tom, with some more practicalities of the hackathon.
Yeah, sure. So as I said, these first 3 webinars this week is kind of kicking off the themes of the hackathon. So today you've kind of seen 3 examples of digital twins in action. Tomorrow we'll be talking about the fusing of AI and digital twins. I think you could already see from today how putting some kind of language model on top of digital twins, like the ones that have been presented, could be a really interesting and new way of interacting with digital twins to understand sort of the data, and especially for people who aren't really have a strong scientific background. And the third webinar on Wednesday is talking about interoperability. I put in the chat earlier on at the very start a link to the Iliad website, which has more information about the hackathon that we'll be organizing throughout this year, and I've just dropped that in again. So the hackathon will have 2 components. It will have an online ongoing hacking session that will start towards the end of this month, the beginning of June. There will be a few more webinars in support of that, and also the opportunities to build teams and sort of generate some sort of starting work, and that will then accumulate in a physical hacking session in September. That will be in Oslo, and so the people who have been working on the online hackathon will then be coming to Oslo to work on their projects and present them sort of to a larger group. We're now opening registration to the hackathon. So if you look on the website, you'll see that there's a registration link. So if you're interested, I would encourage you to sign up there. We'll be hosting more webinars beyond this week on different aspects related to the Iliad project and the technical components that have been developed. Some more working sessions will be organized. So I think the best place is to look on the website, register, and we'll keep you updated. And if you want to join in the future webinars, then you can also see them there and register on the website.